Okay, consider the strangeness of this. I answered a question today asked by a Protestant who knew some difference between the Eastern Orthodox. They at least they knew that the Eastern Orthodox Church were at odds with the Pope. So good on them for that. But they asked the question, wouldn't Moses freak out if he saw, somebody, you know, they used the word worship, but venerating an image or kissing an image of the Virgin Mary. This illustrates the shocking difference between way of thinking of East and West automatically. The second commandment, right? Thou shalt not make anything in the heavens or in the earth or in the earth below or that which swims in the sea and bow down to it, right? That's the commandment. Is that against making images to be used in worship of God? No. How do we know? Because God then commanded Moses to craft a wooden box on the top of which were two cherubim, which had the body of a bull, the head of a man, the wings of an eagle outstretched, and God said his spirit would rest in between the wings, and that was called the mercy seat, where they would sprinkle blood. And this box, called the Ark of the Covenant, was to be placed underneath two giant cherubim, these monsters, which were basically pagan gods, but represented the servants of the one true God, in a tent decorated with cherubim and other weird creatures. Not to mention that Moses crafted a bronze serpent called the Nahashtun for people to gaze at, to be healed, and that when the Temple of Solomon was built, again, you had these cherubim figures inside the temple, as well as something called the sea, which was a big bronze basin held up by 12 bulls, as well as the fact that the staff of the chief priest had a pomegranate on it, and there were different symbols of different living, growing things, not just animals but plants as well, that were ordered for the liturgical worship of God, of the God of Moses, in the books of Moses, in the first 5 books, and it carries through all the way through the Old Testament. In the New Testament, Galatians 3, verse 1 says, "You foolish Galatians, who has bewitched you? Before your very eyes you have seen Christ depicted as crucified." If that's not referring to iconography, I don't know what is, because this is 14 years after the crucifixion, in an area that's now in northern Turkey, and the oldest churches and oldest synagogues that get uncovered are covered in iconography. I mean, it's beyond ridiculousness, and even the fact that the Gospels explicitly say the incarnation of Christ is the living image of the Father, since the Father is spirit and ethereal and has no form, just like the Holy Spirit, just like the Son or the Logos before he took on flesh, causing the Christ to exist. So God broke his own commandments. God, first of all, you'd have to say, well, God broke his commandments before he gave the commandments. Then he broke his own commandments. He commanded Moses to break the second of the 10 commandments multiple times, as well as many of the most devout people of Israel. And then he himself broke his own commandment by sending his son, the Logos, or again, the Holy Spirit appearing as a dove, God appearing as a pillar of fire. So it's clear that the second commandment is an injunction against pagan worship or taking on your own gods from nature and then bowing down to them or creating them. And we see what that leads to. It leads to the worship of Moloch, which the Bible describes as them sacrificing infants, and the archaeological evidence backs that up completely. Gods that people create tend to reflect them. They tend to be very cruel and jealous and petty. Sometimes the God of the Bible tends to seem that way, which is probably more of a reflection of us than it is of him, and also our limited word usage. Peace to you.